providing you with the ideological equivalent of yo mama jokes aimed at the other side. This is the Daniel Natal Show. In the spirit of the laws, Montesquieu said that republics are motivated by virtue, monarchies are motivated by honor, and despotisms are motivated by fear. This is instructive to remember when you see the latest fear narrative that's designed to override your critical thinking faculties and channel you in a particular direction. Since the rise of mass media and the creation of propaganda, governments started turning what was once a weapon of war against their own populations. 1920 social critic and World War I propagandist Walter Lippmann wrote in his book, Public Opinion, that for the first time in history, we have a new form of government other than the classical forms outlined by Aristotle thousands of years ago. And that new form of government is a technocracy, where people are not called upon to exercise logic or reason, but to be manipulated by their unconscious impulses and fears. One of Lippmann's colleagues on the staff of the World War I Ministry of Propaganda, called the Committee on Public Information, was Edward Bernays. Bernays is the man who coined the term public relations when the original term propaganda fell into disfavor. Later on, Bernays was approached by the U.S. government to allay fears about atomic war. Bernays disagreed, however, and said that rather than allay fears, it was better to exaggerate them, because a scared public was easier to control. Watch here in the documentary, The Century of the Self.
In 1953, the Soviet Union exploded its first hydrogen bomb, and the fear of nuclear war and communism gripped the United States. Those in power became concerned about how to reassure the population. Committees were set up and public information films made, appealing for calm in the face of new threats, like nuclear fallout.
It's the fallacy of devoting 85% of one's worrying capacity to an agent that constitutes only about 15% of an atomic bomb's destroying potential.
At this point, Edward Bernays was living in New York. In the 1920s, he had invented the profession of public relations, and was now one of the most powerful PR men in America. He worked for most of the major corporations and advised politicians, including President Eisenhower. Like his uncle Sigmund, Bernays was convinced that human beings were driven by irrational forces. The only way to deal with the public was to connect with their unconscious desires and fears. Bernays argued that instead of trying to reduce people's fear of communism, one should actually encourage and manipulate the fear, but in such a way as it became a weapon in the Cold War. Rational argument was fruitless.
What my father understood about groups is that they are manipulable, they're malleable, and that you can tap into their deepest desires or their deepest fears and use that to your own purposes.
Since the end of World War II, governments have found fear a useful tool in controlling their populations. Their go-to is usually something invisible, never proven, and claimed to be ubiquitous. Since it's invisible, you can't fact-check it, like terrorists, or viruses, or nebulous claims about global warming. Every so often, though, they have to switch out the threat and create a new one. Until recently, it never occurred to me why. Suddenly, I realized what it was. It has to do with neuroplasticity and the use of executive function in the brain. Executive function is seated in the frontal lobe and is associated with higher brain function. Executive function is basically what we think of as conscious thought. It's that part of the brain that you use when you learn something new, like learning a new language or figuring out roads in a new city. Once we have it down pat, our brain has a trick for saving time by a process that psychologists call chunking. Chunking is when a function is shifted from the front of the brain to the back of the brain where habit is stored. This is the part of the brain that controls blinking, heartbeats, breathing, involuntary activity. It's also the part of the brain that's associated with addiction. Neuroscientists call it the lizard brain. Habit formation and chunking is why you no longer have to consciously think of all the steps it takes to drive a car. A new student has to use executive function to take all these steps. A seasoned motorist, however, just does it all automatically, almost hypnotically. We sleepwalk through actions and don't have to dedicate much thought to it. We all have to get to this stage of habit because, let's face it, executive function costs energy. It's painful. And here's why fear narratives are so effective. When propagandists trot out a new example of fear porn designed to debilitate you, the discomfort you experience is not due so much to the narrative itself as the fact that you have to mentally rearrange your world to accommodate the so-called new normal that these fear narratives engender. This causes mental duress, like learning a new language. I remember almost crying when I had to study Spanish and learn all the conjugations. It made my brain hurt. Likewise when someone asked me to do math, because I never liked math and I was never a math person, so neural channels were never carved out in my brain, so it cost me great stress to engage in executive function, and I just blank out. In fear narratives, you associate this duress with the particular story they're giving you, so you're stressed out. You experience the pain of neuroplasticity long after your brain is no longer plastic. It's rigid now, set, so any changes hurt. But a funny thing happens. Eventually, as with driving, you settle into the new normal. It becomes habit. As a result, you calm down and stop really paying attention to it. Consequently, the narrative loses its effectiveness. I remember the neocons expressing frustration that Americans no longer had an unreasoning panic related to 9/11. They were desperate for us to remain in that stressful state forever, but due to the way the brain works, the shock doctrine, as Naomi Klein calls it, starts to wear off. People recover their bearings, and the fear subsides. Thus the propagandists set to work, coming up with a new fear narrative to start the process all over, to throw you off balance, destabilize you, recarve new channels into your neural pathways with new normals, new traditions, new enactments of operant conditioning. The point is, be conscious of it. Don't get panicked by invisible threats, which are purposely designed to evade scrutiny and fact-checking. Turn off your TV. Stop watching people who are paid to lie to you. And one other thing, don't live in fear. Our freedoms are under attack, and yet the loss of freedom is not inevitable. America can be saved, and an informed citizenry can and will make the difference. Join us weekly for episodes of Beyond the Cover, and check out our print magazine too at thenewamerican.com.